The biggest name.
You're locked into JJ and Alex. With the insight and analysis on the teams you can't live without. Presented by G2G Bars. This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Welcome back, everybody. JJ and Alex, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Happy Friday to you. Alex Curie, Jeremiah Jensen. We are, of course, lamenting what could have been for Team USA last night against Team Canada. But, man, this Four Nations tournament brought everything that the sport of hockey could have imagined. I mean, my goodness, the amount of people watching that game last night just here in the U.S. compared to what you normally get. It's the most watched NHL, even NHL, adjacent hockey on television that we've had in 30-plus years in the United States. That is a win for the sport of hockey. And, of course, here in the state of Utah, comes at a great time as we are starting to get into hockey more and more. Joining us on the program right now, Stephen Whyno. NHL is his beat for the AP. Stephen, thanks for being with us on the program.
Anytime, guys. How you doing?
Oh, phenomenal. Great. I mean, we couldn't have asked for a better last few games here between Team USA and Team Canada. Of course, the Americans will lament the loss, but I would imagine that overtime loss to Canada and just how this whole tournament played out, you couldn't have gotten a better result for the sport of hockey.
Yeah, it's almost like you scripted it in that you have these four teams playing. It's intense, it's fast, it's hard-hitting. You have the fights. You get the U.S.-Canada final that everyone wants, and you sort of get what Gary Bettman was talking about of an appetizer from Milan, where you've got Canada maintaining this sort of hockey superiority and the return of NHL players to the Olympics a year from now in Milan. I believe the gold medal game is a year from tomorrow.
Wow.
And so the U.S. thinking revenge, the U.S. still sort of waiting for its moment to break through for the first time since 1980. And it really just set up absolutely perfectly for the NHL, for the Players Union, and for the sport of hockey in general.
Boy, who thought that Four Nations could be a hit like this? But, man, it was a massive hit. ESPN had 9.3 million viewers last night. It makes it the most watched NHL game in 30-plus years. The question now, I think, Stephen, is how does the NHL capitalize on this? How do they take advantage of the eyeballs that they capture during Four Nations, and how can they bring more people into hockey because of it?
That's a really good question, and there's a lot of people getting paid a lot of money at the league office trying to figure that out because there's no substitute for this. All-Star festivities are great. The Stanley Cup final is unmatched in terms of the battle for that trophy. But then that gets down to two teams, and largely fans from other teams check out at that point. It's a bad time of the year in summer and this and that to try to even get a little bit of momentum a long way, because there are people, J.J. Watt was tweeting about this, that he had friends of his who had never seen a hockey game in their lives who were talking about, hey, where are we watching the game? What food are we ordering? Like making plans sort of around this. And it is sort of a once-in-a-lifetime tournament and a situation that we're never going to see again. But maybe ESPN off NHL the past few years of just the exposure of you go into a bar, it's on. You flip on ESPN just to see what's on, and I think more people are watching it. This was the taste of hockey that I think the Sochi Olympics and TJ Oshie's shootout when U.S. beat Russia with Vladimir Putin in the building and all of that sort of did, where TJ Oshie was on the Today Show, and all of a sudden there was a little bit more excitement around the game. Whether it turns into better ratings or ticket sales, we're going to see, but I think that's the kind of bump the league is hoping for.
You know, one of the things that we've talked about here, because this is now not just an NBA market but also an NHL market with the Utah Hockey Club, I think the sport benefited from the fact that they saw the NBA All-Star Game and the dwindling kind of people going, is this that even that exciting, combined with watching what hockey was doing? And people are going, yeah, that's what we want, what they're doing over here. That had to have boosted a little bit of on top of it, knowing that, you know, the NBA is still huge here. But when you see the excitement that these players bring, there's a different culture when it comes to what these guys do on the ice versus what they do on the NBA court.
Yeah, and the NHL is sort of a year ahead on fixing the All-Star part of it, and Connor McDavid played a big role last year in sort of reinventing what the skills competition looked like and sort of added a little bit of fun to that. And the NHL is not going to in any way try to look at the NBA and take anything away from what that product is, because they would kill for the ratings the NBA gets for an NBA final sort of situation. But yeah, it came at a great time in that the NBA sort of experimenting with stuff and the NHL figuring out something that I don't think people were all that sure of. Even people around the sport, I think, were very sort of skeptical of this Four Nations tournament and what the intensity level would be like. But there's just nothing like hockey players playing for their countries and putting those uniforms on. It just brings something out in them that is totally different. And I think at this point, the league needs to do a real good job of trying to sell the nationalistic part of the, hey, here's American star Austin Matthews, watch the Toronto Maple Leafs. Here's Canadian star Connor McDavid, watch the Edmonton Oilers, and sort of connect back to the moments of this tournament and be able to sort of use the, hey, you're going to watch these guys in Milan on NBC a year from now. Let's go watch them sort of get ready for it and chase the Stanley Cup this spring and get ready for the Olympics next fall and next winter.
Agree 100%, Stephen. If they can tie this into that with the Olympics coming up, I think that's going to go a long way for the league. And as we look ahead, I mean, it's just a year away. I work at an NBC affiliate, and we're already talking about the Olympics, and we're excited for it, excited to be a part of it. But there's going to be a lot of expectation now, and this kind of set the stage for that, as you mentioned. But I think what's interesting is it looks like Team USA is – I'm not saying that they've closed the gap, but they're a lot closer to Canada now than we thought they were. Just how close are they, and what did we learn about Team USA and USA Hockey during this tournament?
Yeah, they've absolutely closed the gap, and this has been decades worth of millions of dollars of resources poured into sort of youth hockey programs across this country. You're seeing the growth of it in Utah, the Salt Lake City area now with Ryan Smith and that group, but also what we saw in Arizona, what we've seen in places like Dallas, Washington with the Alex Ovechkin effect. They're product of a lot of time and money and resources and some good ideas being put into the sport. And I think what we learned about the U.S. and USA Hockey is there's a large depth of talent pool to choose from, and making some poor choices could be the difference between winning or losing a gold medal, winning or losing a Four Nations championship. There are some roster decisions sort of on the margins. You got the obvious guys, Jack Eichel and Austin Matthews, Charlie McAvoy, Zach Werenski, some of these guys who are like no-brainer choices, but there is another generation of younger talent that this management team left off of the roster, or a handful of players from that generation left off this roster that I think are going to be considered part of Milan. When you need that one extra goal, who's going to score it? And I'm talking about guys like Jason Robertson from the Dallas Stars, Tage Thompson from the Buffalo Sabres, Cole Caulfield from the Montreal Canadiens, and most specifically the guy I think belonged there more than anyone else, Utah's Clayton Keller. He's a guy who, watching him in person, the amount of different things he can do on the ice, he's a special player. I would be stunned if Clayton Keller's not in Milan next year. But from a standpoint of building a team, I think there's some questions and some revisiting of how to do that correctly for Milan.
Stephen Whyno, he covers the NHL for the AP, and obviously watching this one play out last night was bittersweet, but I think we all recognized how fun that was and how that crazy overtime period as it was going, like, we're on our feet at my house. Like, my kids are watching hockey, and they never had before, like, at this rate, certainly. So it's an interesting thing to be able to be a part of and to watch. It's really fun to see this thing play out. Real quickly before we get you out of here, the Utah Hockey Club, of course, kicking off the rest of their season, the last third of this year, and we're looking at this team, and is it wishful thinking just to think that this team could be on that fringe discussion of one of those last two wild card spots in the West, or is it just a little too much to be able to overcome in maybe a next couple of years situation?
Yeah, I think it's a next couple of year situation, and I went into the season thinking, and I picked Utah, this team, to make the playoffs. I really thought that this group was ready to take that next step into being a playoff contender. There's just too many teams in that stacked Central Division to try to overcome. And then the problem with the NHL standings and the way that the format works is with every game being potentially some games being 2 points for a winner, 1 point for a loser, the standings look a little tighter than they are. And so it takes a lot, not just to make up ground in points, but to be jumping over teams in the process. And that's something that I think there's not enough time left in the season to do it. It's really incumbent now on Bill Armstrong to make some smart, not fire sale moves at the deadline, but to be selling smartly and to sort of almost reset and refresh. This is not a rebuilding process by any means. They found goaltenders in Karol Vejmelka and Connor Ingram to sort of build around, and guys like Clayton Keller and Logan Cooley. Mikhail Sergachev is a great piece of a future winning team. I do think it's more of a next year situation, but I hope it's been fun around there to see NHL hockey, to see a team in that market, and sort of what's going to be the spuds of a winning franchise in the near future.
Well, we appreciate the appearance on the program today here. Stephen Whyno, NHL writer for the Associated Press. Awesome energy for the side of hockey. We just love having anybody who we can kind of jam with on this thing as we get to know the sport a little bit more here in Salt Lake, but also as Team USA starts to take off a little bit, and just the sport itself has had an awesome last couple of weeks. So, Stephen, we appreciate it, man. We'll chat with you again sometime.
Happy to do it. Talk to you soon.
There you go. That's good to hear. I was waiting to see if he was going to drop Clayton Keller's name, and he actually